Jeff here, working on this book on working with the French. I've already explained that this is kind of an article I'm converting into a video series, and uh, and I'm doing this video actually early on because I was started, but I was going to go ahead and do other chapters first. But actually, I'm sitting in a restaurant, and it proves one of my points, and so I want to go ahead and do this one first because it's just hot on the press here to do it. So the topic I want to talk about was the how um, are the French are fearful of. I'll do a little kind of one here to say here that the kind of just a quick kind of overview. The French are fearful of being um, being the employee of the month, to be the one that sells, and the one that's visible and everything. The great person of the month or whatever, to be awards and recognized and all that. The French are they don't like that. Okay, that's against their culture. I'll go to that in a second. And then they're also fearful of being the one that fails. And failure seems a really bad thing. You don't want to mention that you fail. And I'm going to explain why. So the failure, the employee of the month thing goes to why does McDonald's employee of the month not quite work, and why does like the salesperson of the quarter, salesperson of the month, not work in France in general? Because it goes against a book called Le Petit Nicolas, the Little Nicholas. Serre, I can't remember his first name here. Serre is his last name. That wrote in the 1950s, 60s. I can't remember his first name. I'm sorry, but it was a book that people read. I mean, it's a kids in the classroom. It's talking about the kids in the classroom, their teacher, and all this stuff, and things about the things of the relationships from the kids and the teacher with the parents, and all that kind of stuff. And this Petit Nicolas book has the favorite kid of the class, has the guy that gets all the A's, the good student of the class. But the thing with him, and it's a series of kind of books, a series of things. They've done series out of this. But the thing with the kid that was kind of the favorite kid of the class is he was pulling strings with his parents and the teacher to actually be able to do things, right? So it's a negative thing to be in the best of the class because that is seen and perceived by the rest of the French people, according to this book, and the book that's like people all know. Every time I mention this, they all know what I'm talking about. They all know what I'm talking about. For 32 years I've been saying this, 33 years now. They totally get it. That it's pulling strings. It's not actually doing it by merit and doing it by yourself. It's because you have had an advantage. You've been privileged by some way that you've used your parents and your networking of other opportunities, especially your parents. Okay, nepotism kind of stuff. Okay, right? To be able to get a job or get an internship or to get something or to get the favorite of the class and all that kind of stuff, the teacher, and influencing without authority, right? So there's a lot of that comes into play. The students that's why that's why the students do not want to be visible by being the student of the month or the employee of the month or the favorite kid of the class. My son doesn't want to be, he's just getting straight A's and he doesn't want to be visible. He tries to hide that. He tries to do things so that even though he is number one or two of the entire class or the entire group of all the students and stuff, he doesn't want to be visible that way because it's a shame. Because it makes it look like I'm helping him do it, which is not the case. He's doing it by himself. I'm not helping him at all. Um, I'm giving him stuff. I'm helping him just teach him and stuff, but I'm not playing politics with his teachers and stuff. In fact, they don't want me to because I'll shame them on other stuff if I do stuff because they're just kind of mediocre in half the stuff they do. But but it's the whole employee of the month doesn't work well. So that's one half of the formula. The other half of the formula is that students don't want to be the failure. Okay, they don't want to be the one that is that because what happens in France, the teachers will literally, I mean, they will come out. They will come out. I've had this happen to me, okay? Well, not actually happen to me because I've never actually failed. Well, I did that one class, one thing I talked about in another video. I talked about the teacher that gave me a 12 out of 20 because I dared to oppose her and tell her she was wrong, okay? So she just got mad at me and gave me a 12 out of 20 because I dared to speak out again. I dared to call her out, okay? I dared to call her out on something I knew it better than she did, actually, at the university level, master's level. I knew the topic better than she did because I had taught it. But she didn't like that, so she kind of played the little thing and gave me 12, 20. But so I've lived through this. But you see students that are, this is, again, back to the school. The children grew up through school. By their grades are actually, all the grades each year from the earliest level on are all published up on the wall of the school, outside the school, to see if they actually got what their exam results are and what their if they actually succeeded in the year in their exams, and like at the end of the year, if you got through and you actually went the next year, it's all published up there. Your grade, your average, okay? So up to 20. So if you were a 13 or a 9, and it said your honors level or not, or just said you passed, you passed, you got honors, you got high honors, you got highest honors, whatever. So those are the kind of 3 levels. But you passed, or you didn't pass because it didn't say anything, right? So they are. It's a shame culture. It's a shame culture in the education system, and the teachers will actually come out to you with the homework that you've done, and rather than fold, kind of America, what they do is you fold it in half and hide it and give it to the here they have the thing full up and actually say to the other students, look, he only got a 7 out of 20. I mean, they do this to all everybody. They shame the kids in front of their peers. So there's French students, they don't want to be that either. They don't want to be the employee of the month, and they don't want to be the failure of the class. Again, that's in the Petit Nicolas book. It's there. It's the school system, talking about schools, and there's the kids that aren't very good and well, and so this whole thing kind of comes into play. And I've seen this. I went to the university here. I get several degrees here at the university here. A post-baccalaureate teaching degree, and I did a master's, did my doctoral studies. So I've seen this. And I've seen it in my kids, the next generation afterwards. And I've seen it with friends and peers. And I talked about this for 30 plus years. And they all totally agree. They just say, yeah, you're right. Because it's a shame culture. Now, and one person I will not name, because that person does not want to be named, has actually told me, and I've talked about this actually in my article, Working the French. I've talked about it in training sessions, because I do cross-cultural training sessions. I mention this all the time in France. And this person said that actually the way to do it is to stay, you're not visible in any way. High visibly, a good way, or negative. You stay in the middle, you stay kind of behind, you stay hidden, and you don't accept anything by email. Or you only respond, or you don't respond at all. The way it is not respond at all. You don't say anything. You try not to respond. That's the way to hide, to not be visible at all in any way. So you kind of live through life just trying to hide. Okay, hide. It's your protection thing. It's all the bomb shelter is actually staying, under this thing of not responding to things and just being hidden, which is completely against, a lot of cultures that you got to market yourself and stuff. So this really doesn't go over well. Okay. And I've struggled this for 3 decades because I'm a person that just makes things happen. I'm a person that makes things happen. So, so I want to bring up an anecdote I saw here. And I've never had anybody say I was wrong. I said one person did make, in one of the comments on the book or that article said, "Oh, that thing there," but the person couldn't read English, so they're just kind of making that. But they were kind of making a comment. Couldn't actually read the English very well. They said their English sucks anyways, and they're making a comment in an article. They don't read English very well, and they said this thing. And I said, "Yeah, but you didn't read the introduction, because the introduction I said, hey, in general." International stuff and stuff. I'm talking about like in small little company stuff. I'm not talking about international companies where you're working with international people. So that person actually didn't read the introduction of my article, a 4-page article, to actually say critique a point that I brought up in the article. So I kind of blew that one off because it didn't apply. It just didn't apply. It was an out of scope topic. But everyone else I've talked to in 15 years of doing this, I haven't published that article. It's just, yeah. They all said, actually, what did you forget? I said, well, no, it was in the draft version, but I had to kind of take some things out. But I'm here sitting in a restaurant today, okay? I had a restaurant here. And this is 15 more years, more than 15 years after I read that article. And I talked about, where, the whole thing of failure and what are the things that come up to failure and being scared of being tagged as failed. And the book that I mentioned at the end of my article called French and Americans, The Other Shore, French and Americans, The Other Shore, that the French title is actually the original French was Les Français, les Américains, L'autre rive. Okay. Pascal Baudry, B-A-D-R-Y, B-A-U-D-R-Y. Pascal is B-A-U-D-R-Y is his family name. Pascal, P-A-S-C-A-L, is his first name. He wrote the book in the early 2000s, and he sent me the book when I sent my article. He sent me the book. So, and one of the things he said in one of the chapters on education, which is totally true, and I'm going to explain this today here about this example here. So the restaurant, he said that children, what happens to the French, what the French do is they sit there on the playground and they critique their children all day long in the playground, sitting there saying, "Oh, don't fall down, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. You scraped your knee, you did this," and it's like it's just negative stuff all the time. And he says in America, he says what happens is they tell you, so you got a little thing in your knee. Okay, wipe it off, go play. So just kind of keep them going, move. It doesn't matter if you got a thing. Don't sit there and get mad at them because they fell down. Just wipe it off and stop them crying. And hey, stop crying, just go do the stuff. So he says you can see this on the playground with the parents and the relationship between the parents and the kids. He says in France, it's just this constant critiquing, constant criticism of being negative, being failure in some way. So he said that in the book, and he said this in the book back in, it would have been, I published my article in 2004, so it kind of been that period of time, maybe between 2001 and 2003, okay? Well, I'm sitting here in a restaurant today, 20 years later, 2002, and I was sitting here next to a table here where they got two guys. They got actually the grandfather, the father, and a child, a little girl that's probably she's probably 4 years old. Okay, about 4 years old. I'm kind of guessing. And they're sitting there critiquing, or they're sitting there criticizing their whole meal. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. You're going to do this. Don't spill your thing. Don't do this. And she's kind of just moving around. She's kind of want to move around a little bit. And every single thing she's doing, they're criticizing her for the whole meal. Everything's bad she's doing. Every single thing. Both of them. The grandfather and the father. It was just totally obvious. And I'm just thinking, this is the thing that these kids not want to be high, they don't want to be negative, they don't want to be failures, because like every single thing that she's done, whether it be where she positioned her fork on the plate, where she have her ice cream, where she did this, where she had her feet, where she had the whole meal. And this is people I don't know in a restaurant. It's just culture. It's the fault of culture. So this is why French people do not like to be failures, and they do not like to be employees of the month and successes, because they've been conditioned by both sides and they want to stay in the middle, hidden. And this is why French people are really not good at sales. I'm not saying there are exceptions. There are exceptions. Usually those exceptions are people that have gone to other countries and lived in other countries. But they're usually the ones here. And I see this all the time. And I see it too. I can see it in colleagues who work there. Pitching, they're just not good at pitching, pitching a sales. actually promoting their not promoting because you're not supposed to do this because it's not good. So if you can't promote yourself, then how do you sell? Okay, so that's the kind of that chapter. That's that whole chapter about the being kind of in the hidden bombshell, the protected bombshell, or the bomb shelter of not to be not wanting to be a success or not wanting to be a failure. It's all about not wanting to be a success or not being wanting to be a failure in French culture. Again, there are exceptions. I recognize the exceptions, but tell me how many exceptions you've seen. Okay, start numbering them. Start giving me because I can give way more anecdotes of the ones that are following this than I can of the few exceptions I've seen and I've been looking for 30 plus years. Okay, and I'm kind of one of those exceptions. There, I'm kind of in French culture. People recognize me as being kind of part of the French culture got me integrated in. But they said, Jeff, you're different. You're just different. You're that way. You can do this. And because you're from the States, because you come from the States, you can actually get away with this by being a success. But if you're part of French culture, you wouldn't. It just wouldn't work. You'd be dismissed. That kind of thing. So something to think about for this book on working with the French. And this again, this is not to be negative about this, to help people understand how the French think and what things work and what things don't. Because if you are a person that's really into successful things and really doing it, and you're trying to do it the French and stuff, and you're trying to work with the French, you're going to really struggle with this because they're going to sit there and kick you back all the time. They're going to kick you back, and they're not going to want to accept that. They're gonna struggle with accepting you because you're the one that's being the kid in that book that the parents that allowed you to be privileged and pull the strings and other stuff. It's just that. So think about it. Hope this helps for you to figure out how to how to work with the French.